Rotom's introduction in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and even Platinum has never just been a coincidence, as without it, Team Galactic wouldn't exist. It allows us to finally see why Cyrus's real motivation behind destroying our world comes from fear, not ignorance. While Rotom's influence on the Generation 4 games has been theorized ever since their initial release, they've never looked past the obvious clues. So today, I'm going to do just that. The first piece of evidence is found inside of Team Galactic's Eterna city building in a place fittingly called Rotom's Room. Within you can find two different journals. The first are research notes, and they were obviously penned by Charon, one of Team Galactic's commanders. The notes talk about Charon's experiments on Rotom and how he was the first to discover its ability to merge with household appliances. But that's a lie. He wasn't the first to record any of this. Let's look at the second journal, or more specifically a diary written by a young child. It records their first encounter with Rotom, which occurred after having lost their toy robot. The two of them quickly become friends, with the kid even naming it Rotom, which actually just comes from the word motor, spelled backwards. It's commonly thought that both of these were written by Charon, but that can't be true as they actually contradict each other. Notice how the research notes record Charon's first discovery of Rotom's merging abilities. The diary, on the other hand, shows us how the child and Rotom first met as the Pokemon emerged from their family's lawnmower. So either Charon faked the journal entries, or there's a different owner entirely. Another theory is that it was actually the little girl from the old manor. However, there are two things that contradict it. First off, we don't find any sign of the girl being technologically inclined. At most, we find an old book in the manor that reads, "Something so peculiar should make off with the motor." This could very much reference Rotom, since, you know, the whole motor analogy. It's also supported by the player being able to find a Rotom hiding within a broken television inside of the manor, which could be the one from the Rotom Room, since the Pokemon would obviously be hiding from Charon if it got experimented on. Either way, that's really the only piece of evidence that would prove her being the diary's owner. On top of that, there's a data entry from the Generation 8 games that disproves it further. Rotom's dex entry in Pokemon Sword states the following: "One boy's invention led to the development of many different machines that take advantage of Rotom's unique capabilities." Since we now know that Charon was the second person to discover Rotom, and also certainly would not be referenced to as boy in the dex entries, it would mean that the various forms of Rotom were instead discovered by the diary's holder, which is also referenced to by this part of the journal. But if the Old Chateau's girl were to have been the journal's owner instead, well, then the dex entries would obviously make reference to a girl. Which brings us to the video's main point of discussion, Cyrus, and he's got a lot of evidence that points to him being this journal's owner. First things first, we need to look at the diary's writing style and compare it to something Cyrus has already written. Cyrus's computer inside of the HQ actually has a variety of reports written by him in it. I took the liberty of writing out both the journal and reports, since these text boxes are rather finicky to work with. Let's look at the two side by side. Both of them have a habit of using connectors, with words like however, finally, much to my surprise, needless to say, being peppered throughout. Then there is the writing structure as a whole as well. Every time he starts a new section, he starts with a crisp topic sentence, such as, "Our encounter was a sudden one," or "The mythical Pokemon." Finally, I do want to point out the use of trailing sentences. The reports have them scattered throughout, while in the journal, they're mostly found in the back end. Why did I mention the back end? Well, this supports our final conclusion later on. Cyrus is also known to be quite intelligent, especially when it's concerning technology. Not only does this correlate with the kid's fascination of Rotom's electrical capabilities in the diary, it also makes logical sense in another way. Since the diary's holder mentions Rotom and them being unable to touch, it would make sense for the kid to create technology that allows them to make contact. This would then also explain how Cyrus has the technological know-how to create this advanced machinery, like the one that can decipher ancient texts, as stated in the games. The old man you can find on Route 228 plays a role as well, since he's very likely to be Cyrus's grandfather. He talks to you about his grandson, who had found refuge from the pressure both of his parents constantly put on him by tinkering with electronics. Cyrus's grandfather's statement can be elaborated on and would even make more sense if we have Cyrus be the journal's true owner. Because in reality, Cyrus wasn't just tinkering with machines, he was also playing with his newly made friend, Rotom. But there's actually a bit of a hole in this theory, and while I do have somewhat of an answer, I'd still like your opinion on it. In Legends of Arceus, Rotom's dex entry states it by name, something that shouldn't be possible if it were to have been both discovered as well as named by Cyrus way into the future. My easiest explanation for it would be time travel, with the player writing down the name Rotom since they come from a time where it already once existed. If you've got a better idea for it, then write a comment on it below, and while you're down there, consider subscribing and liking the video if you've enjoyed it thus far. For the next piece of evidence, we need to head to Alola. In the postgame of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, we encounter Team Rainbow Rocket, where we get to once again meet with Cyrus. Cyrus notices we're carrying a Rotom dex, with him then asking us to see it. Rotom reveals itself to Cyrus, though the significant bit of information comes out of his reaction to the whole thing. He pauses, then almost to himself, he mutters, "I see, so you have a spirit as well." But honestly, that's the least interesting part about this whole conversation, since the biggest pieces of lore are revealed to us only after the battle itself. Cyrus asks us how we're able to form bonds and even harness them to make our Pokemon stronger. But before the player can respond, Rotom cuts in, proudly announcing that we're kind to all Pokemon, which is, to be debatable. Anyway, Cyrus once again falls silent, before, and this is the important part, directly addressing Rotom, and in a tone that can only be described as gentle. He tells it not to worry, with him even promising not to harm this world. Not only is the way he speaks to Rotom extremely uncharacteristic for the guy, he'll also give us another piece of information. As the scene closes, he says, "Had I met you sooner, would things have been different for me?" Now, who is he speaking to here? Is it the player? Maybe, but considering the direction of his gaze and everything else that just happened, it could just as easily be meant for Rotom. I'll let you decide that one for yourself. Another really solid clue to the connection between Rotom and Cyrus is found in Pokemon Masters EX. In the game, there's a thing called Sync Pair Stories, which in simplest terms is just a side mission that focuses on different characters. Cyrus also has one, and in it, he has a discussion with Sophocles, and you guessed it, Rotom. The part that's most interesting to us, though, is when Sophocles spots Rotom hanging around Cyrus, even calling out to it, but Rotom doesn't budge. Team Galactic's leader then questions Sophocles about whether this is his Pokemon, to which he responds that it isn't. Instead, he's just borrowing Rotom for help, as he likes tinkering with machines. Cyrus then falls silent, looking at Rotom before stating, "Tinkering with machines with Rotom, huh?" The final clue is then revealed to us as Cyrus turns to leave. Sophocles jokes that Rotom seems to really like Cyrus, to which he'll respond with, "I don't mind this, Rotom." So with all of that in mind, I think we can say that Cyrus was the true author of that diary. But that's not the real point of this theory, is it? The real question was, how did Rotom cause Cyrus to fear his emotions? The answer lies in the diary's second passage. It states that the child wanted to play a prank on his friend, but in doing so, he startled it, causing Rotom to electrocute him to the point that he even became unconscious. And there's subtle evidence for why this is the exact moment his emotions shifted. Remember the diary's trailing, uncertain sentences that only appear in the latter half, the half that documents the events after the electrocution? That's the moment the child's worldview fractures. There's also another scene in Pokemon Masters EX, where Cyrus asks Sophocles, "Have you ever felt pain or sadness due to your incomplete spirit?" After which he'll answer a confused Sophocles with, "Because you remind me of a child I know very well." There's actually a bit more to this whole thing. 7 years ago, on the Japanese Pokemon YouTube channel, they uploaded an animation featuring someone none other than the boy from the journal. But either way, it's tough taking that into account for our theory, especially since Pokemon's animations haven't exactly been extremely lore accurate. What is lore accurate, however, is the fact that Arceus originally made 4 creation dragons, not just 3. If you want to know the reasoning behind that theory, check out the video here.